Welcome. I'm Dr. Zimmerman.
I'm Cassandra Linares, the second-year doctoral trainee.
We're glad to have you here and welcome to another episode of Tuesday Soothes the Soul. We have a really interesting topic for you today. The title is The Hidden Cost of Saying I Don't Care. I just want to pause. We read this article and we wanted to bring it to you because it was just such an interesting insight to just the title, The Hidden Cost of Saying I Don't Care. And that's something I hadn't thought about, and I know we talked about it. You said you hadn't thought about. And just this article was very insightful, but I want to pause at just the title, and I just want to say, I had no clue. I have said I don't care, in my opinion, so many times.
On numerous occasions.
Right?
Yes, I think that is basically my go-to in order for me to feel like I'm pleasing the other person.
Yes. And it just feels very natural sometimes because we want to talk about the angles that we're coming from. They have presented in this article, and again, this article is from the Psychology Today magazine, and I want to show you the cover of the issue. Psychology Today, and the article is written by Josh Gonzalez, and this is the page that we're looking at. And we want to try to link it for you in our videos. We just want to pause and say, there's so many angles and perspectives, so we've taken notes and we want to talk about this article. So when you hear that, what do you think of when you hear someone saying, I don't care?
I guess for me, being on the other side of hearing that, it elicits a little bit of frustration because I don't like making decisions. So it does make me a little bit frustrated. What do you mean you don't care? You can't just pick something?
Right, and that is something the article absolutely talks about. And I really like the first part of the article where they talk about we think we're being more socially harmonious or accepting in our relationships, where we're just trying to meet each other halfway or easier. But in the article, they're saying that could actually backfire.
I could see that. For a little self-disclosure moment, I definitely have had friendships, relationships where it's well, can you just pick something?
Right.
Or you can tell that there's tension because you can't really come to a decision.
Yes. And I'll be honest, again, self-disclosure moment, I make decisions all day.
It's the opposite.
I'm here making decisions all day.
Yes.
And I have 3 kids, I'm making a lot of decisions. But in my relationships sometimes, I don't want to make the decision.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the one to say where we're eating or where we're going.
Right. And sometimes it comes out of fear or there's security in saying I don't care and not making the decision, because then you won't have any faults if it doesn't work out.
Right.
Or if the restaurant is nasty that you guys pick to go to, or whatever it may be.
Yes. They call that no preference communication in the article, meaning they would be happy with any decision. This makes decisions easier for others, is what they believe. So the no preference communication is basically people believing if they don't have a preference, that it would make it easier on the other person. I can see that, right?
Yes,
I can see that. I can see where it would appear to be easier.
Right.
But like you said earlier, being on the receiving end of it, there's a complete different story.
Oh, yeah.
And being on the receiving end of the no preference communication, they say, increased the decision maker's perceived difficulty and led them to like the other person less.
That does make sense. I will say, I don't know if I've experienced such extreme feelings of liking the other person less, but more so having some annoyance.
Right.
Or maybe some irritability, but I just thought it was a me problem. I never thought it actually showed and other people felt this way as well.
Yeah, this is where the article for me was very interesting, and I for myself feel that I think this can vary based on the stage of the relationship that you're in. So if you're early in the stages of your relationship, or someone is just meeting someone and they constantly perceive the other person not making a decision or having a no preference communication, that can be very maybe perceived as liking the other person less.
Yes.
But maybe people that have been in a long-term relationship may feel like an annoyance or irritation, you know, that the other person isn't putting their opinion or giving feedback on what they like.
Definitely, and I think it also plays a part of like the effort. Like if you say I don't care too much, your partner or, you know, whoever it may be may receive the message as like there's no effort that you're putting into this relationship.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said earlier, I think these conversations are important to have because for me, I make decisions all day. I don't want to have another decision to make.
Yes.
So they talk about that. They actually say they believe the other person did have a preference and that they're just not disclosing it.
So Dr. Zimmerman, let me ask you, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you did have a preference, but you just didn't feel comfortable or didn't really want to voice it?
Yes. It wasn't that I wasn't comfortable, but as a mom of 3, I'm trying to keep the peace.
Oh, 100%.
So yes, my reasoning came from I just wanted to make it work for all of us.
Yes.
So that's a really good question because we have to understand for all of us where it comes from. And for me, it was keeping the peace. And on the other hand, I can also see where it's very important for our own self-care that we talk about what we want, because I think it starts to build some resentment in our relationships.
It sure does. Because then you start to feel unheard. And I think that just opens up another conversation that we can take on, you know, another session. But I believe that when you start to feel unheard, it's like you start to feel like maybe your opinion doesn't matter.
Right.
So you fall back to the I don't care phrase.
Right. This is why this article was just so interesting. They also say in a no preference communication, they believe, first of all, the other person did have an opinion, preference, but didn't disclose it. And the other thing they believed was the other person's preference was different than their own, and they didn't say anything to make the other person happier.
Yes.
Which is also very interesting and difficult because we're assuming now that this is what's happening.
So then this is also where it comes into play, like reading minds.
Yes.
Like expecting others to just know.
Yes. We're mind reading, we're not clarifying. This is where healthy communication, and you've heard, many of you who see me have heard me talk about clarification is very important, and this is another reason why. The other part that they talk about, this led them to choose, some people to choose the less liked path to compromise. And when you are thinking, like, for example, I'll just choose this because you didn't tell me what you want, but here's what I think you want. That's not what I want, but I think this is what you want because you didn't say anything. I'm not going to enjoy it as much. I'm not going to get the same enjoyment out of it because now I'm just thinking I'm pleasing you or what you want in your decision. But we're not talking about it. How wild is this?
So it kind of like leaves it all in the unknown, and like the other person isn't that happy because maybe that's not what they wanted.
Right.
And then the person who made the decision is not unhappy at all because that's not what they wanted, but they wanted to please, you know, whoever was on the opposite end.
Yes. So let's add that on top of everything else that we're doing. They do talk about in this article that it is very good to express our needs in our relationship to protect our relationship. And I absolutely agree with that.
100%. I think there has been some messages that if you express too much, you become labeled as needy. So therefore, typically most partners or people may feel like less likely to engage in conversations to express what they feel because they don't want to come off as needy. They don't want to come off as a burden, and I think that's another reason why being agreeable is just the easier route, but it's almost harmful.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. What if you truly don't have an opinion?
So then, I think that's where our next topic comes into conversation of agreeing that you pick like a decision for 1 week, and then give the other person the opportunity to pick the decision for the following week.
Yes.
And I think that would create some peace, but also make both parties happy.
Yes. And I love that this article talked about that, because it's often like, what do we do if we truly don't have an opinion?
Right.
What is the right thing to do if you truly don't care whether you're going to this restaurant or that restaurant, or you have this for dinner or that, but maybe you're leaning towards one versus the other. And it's okay to say, I don't want to choose today. Why don't you pick today and I'll pick next week? So that allows the other person to feel like you have some say and that they don't always have to make the decision about choosing. And those are just some examples we've used, but there are 1,000 reasons why you might use this and where it might come into play for you in your personal life and relationships.
I agree. And I just want to emphasize, voice your needs. It's always great to get it out there, because if you don't, you're going to tend to ruminate, or at least feel less than, and experience all these negative emotions, and it could be harmful and detrimental to your relationship and your self-concept of how you see yourself. So just voice your needs. You know, everybody has them. They're all important to hear, and it can make a huge difference within the relationship you hold with yourself and with others.
Absolutely. That's another reason why I found this article so interesting, because like you said, it taps into, are we checking in with ourselves?
Yes.
I remember after, I had the kids and it was always about the kids and their decisions. I often forgot to check in with myself and what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone would ask me, what do you want to eat, or what do you want, my husband would ask, I wouldn't know what I wanted. I just didn't know. I got to a point where it was just thinking about everybody else for so long. So I think this article really sparked that same insight for me, at least, and helped me realize that, yes, we do have to have some connection with ourselves.
Definitely. And like that autonomy too, to claim what you want and be okay and confident to speak it out loud. Like no matter what the other party may receive it as, but at least make it known.
Yeah. Well, this was fun.
Yeah, I really like this
article.
topic.
Very cool. And we hope it helps you as well. We hope you found this article interesting.
Yeah.
And thanks for tuning in for Tuesday Suits the Soul episode today.
Yes.
And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below, and we hope to see you next session, I was going to say.
Right. It's just normal for us.
Yes. Next episode.
Yes. Thanks for joining.